As Wentworth residents, we all agree to how lucky we are to have exceptional, pristine beaches and parks to enjoy. But did you know that behind the scenes, there's a volunteer group that has collected more than 500,000 pieces of litter in just over 2 years? Hello, I'm Alexia, a volunteer at Voices of Wentworth, and it's my joy to speak to wonderful people doing good work in our community. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of our land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Today I'm speaking to Mylene Turban, a volunteer at Responsible Runners and a facilitator for Climate Fresk. Mylene is a process engineer within the sustainability and renewable energy sector. She's also a consultant for climate change and for the circular economy. Mylene, hello, welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. So as you may hear, I'm French. I came to Australia almost 3 years ago, straight after university, after studying process engineering, and started to work in the renewable energy industry, and then moved to the water treatment industry, and finally to the climate change consultancy space. And I mean, when I came to Sydney, I came with my partner, but then we didn't know anyone. And I used to be part of a really strong student community in France, and coming from a small village as well, where it's quite important to know your neighbor and be part of a community. So I had the chance to discover Transition Bondi in November 2019, so 2 years ago. So Transition Bondi is a local community group, which has been existing for 10 years. And that's how I kind of started volunteering, and that I started to feel I was part of a community, even when you live in a big city like Sydney. And so within Transition, there was this page on Transition Bondi website called Responsible Runners. But for a year, I kind of ignored it. I didn't know even what it was doing, until we started to receive requests from people asking, when is the next cleanup? Why don't we have any cleanup events in Bondi anymore? And so that's how we discovered that the people who was leading the group in Bondi just stopped just before the first lockdown of COVID, because they moved down south. So I decided to take it over in November last year, so a year ago. And so for a bit of background, Responsible Runners is a group which started 10 years ago in Bondi, just by a local guy called Justin, who started to collect rubbish as he was running every Sunday. And he was slowly joined by a friend, and then the group really grew, and they did like a logo, a website, and they replicated the movement along all the beaches in New South Wales. So it was really a big movement, but it's powered by volunteers. So like if a volunteer leader leave and no one is here to take it over, well, you know how it happened. The group just stopped, or it may lead to a new movement. But in Bondi, yeah, it just stopped for a few months. So we took it over, and we transformed it a bit. And instead of doing a weekly event, we moved to a monthly event, where we try to have a run at the beginning and then the cleanup, so that we can attract different people from different backgrounds. People may come just for the run, and they're not connected at all to environmental action, but they stay because they see everyone doing the cleanup. So they feel kind of forced to stay anyway. But that's how we can connect people from different backgrounds and different involvement in environmental action. So
that's wonderful. And that's really what community organizations are about, aren't they? It's about bringing people together, creating a mission where you can do something that's fun, that's proactive. So in this case, you're doing beach cleanups, you're doing some exercise. And I love the fact that you've separated the running from the cleanups, because not everyone likes to run, or perhaps is not, or maybe you have little children, but you can still get them involved in the cleanup.
It's a strong community, and we are in touch with the council as well, so that at the end of each cleanup, we can give them the data that we collected. So we tried at the end of each cleanup to really sort them out by type of litter. So it could be single-use plastic, straw, cigarette butts, especially they quite like they are the main item we find on the beach. So, and then we give those data to the council and to the Australian Marine Debris Database.
It was created for this purpose, so that people that do cleanups can actually lodge information and data, read what was collected. It's a wonderful resource. And now all of this work, volunteer work in leaning in the environmental area, has led to other things for you. You were telling me about Climate Fresk and your involvement, something that you just started working on this year. It sounds fascinating.
I think as many people, I mean, I heard this story a few times, many people start their environmental journey with waste reduction. Or they start to understand, well, there is an issue, is like, where is my waste going, and what are the consequences of the waste I generate? And then when you start collecting the waste of other people as well, like you can close your eye and say it's not my problem, because you know it's there, it's going into the environment. So for me, my journey started with waste reduction action, and then I wanted to understand more about climate change and what were really the issues with climate change, because even coming from a scientific background, I didn't know much about it. So I was looking for a way to educate myself, and that's how I discovered the Climate Fresk workshop. So it's organized by a French nonprofit organization. The workshop is a 3 hours interactive workshop where people get 42 cards. And one card is a concept. So it could be one human activity, it could be one climate change impact or consequences. And people have to link those cards with cause and consequences link. So at the end of the workshop, people get like a visualization of what are human activities, what are their interaction with the climate system, and what are the consequences of disrupting the climate system. And of course, we have seen those consequences happening already in Australia with the bushfire, the drought, the floods. So that's how I started. And then I decided to become a facilitator. And we are over 10,000 volunteers across the world facilitating the workshop. It's now translated in 35 languages and available in 55 countries. So that's really like a grassroots movement, which started from one professor in France 2 years ago, and is now like really big. And in Australia, we are still not really well known. I think we formed over 200 people within a year. So that's quite a big achievement already. Yeah. But we would really like to get the tool used by as many people as possible: schools, university, businesses, and community groups.
So it's an education tool, really, yeah. But it can apply to all age groups. Or
exactly. Yeah, so it's made to be interactive. So it's played with team of 4 to 8 people. And there is a kid version, which can be played from 9 years old, like earlier, maybe a bit difficult. And then there is the adult version. And there is also a quiz version, which we can use in the festival, for example, to interact with participants.
It sounds incredible. I want to have a go myself.
We are planning a few dates.
Okay, I'm on. I think breaking down complex information that's written by scientists, so those that aren't scientists like myself, sometimes we find it difficult to read and digest that. Bringing that down into bite-sized chunks and creating this kind of visual, interactive game format, let's say, is absolute genius. That's brilliant. From a kind of a community group perspective, like Responsible Runners, what do you think our governments could do to support these movements?
Showing the example first. They are the one taking decision for their community, and if those people don't show the example first, that's hard then to educate people to do it. So it's simple thing, like if you see your member of parliament, using a single-use coffee cup every day, each time they show up, like it's like, we can't tell people to stop using single-use plastic if our leaders still do it in public. I know it's a typical example, but then support from government can come and is coming from grants. So with Responsible Runners, we received a grant from Waverley Council, which was coming from the government. So it shows like support to community group, and it helps us from growing and continuing what we do as well. But I think what I would like to see more probably is like it would be really valuable to get students involved. But I know that as a student, if you have the choice between volunteering your time or taking a part-time job, well, you will take the part-time job because you have to pay your study. So it would be really good to have support from the government to assist students in giving their time for volunteering action, but yeah, helping them in paying back their study with volunteering time. That would be something really good.
That sounds like a very
I
interesting
thought
idea.
about and yeah, and I, because having my hands in many volunteering groups, I always ask the question from friends like, but why do you do it? Like, you don't have to. And yeah, it always brings you more than what you give,
Yes.
like in terms of relationship, in terms of learning, in terms of impact as well. Like you will never have the same impact if you do all those actions by yourself. But yeah, like it's still not in the mind of everyone to give their time for the community. So yeah, really talking about it like you do with Voices of Wentworth is really important to show to people that it's something part of your social life. Yeah, really.
Yeah, I think it's valuable for us personally. As you say, you actually receive more than you give, because not only do you receive the joy of giving of your time, but the people that you meet along the way and the friendships you create and the ideas you are exposed to and the things you learn are incredibly valuable. So yeah, thank you for the good work that you do. And what about just as advice for our Wentworth residents, like 3 top tips that we could implement easily to help protect our environment, to help mitigate climate change, things that we can take up every day straight away?
The first thing to do is to educate yourself on what are the issues, why you should act as well. So in terms of climate change, well, attending a workshop like the Climate Fresk is a good thing, or it could be listening to a podcast or taking an online course. Then in terms of day-to-day life, really trying to reduce like single-use plastic and items consumption really has, like, it's something everyone can do. And it's just like looking at what do you use every day that you can replace with something you can wash and not throw away after 10 minutes of use. And then joining a community group, but especially if you want to have an impact on the local environment, community garden, like they have an impact on the community and on the broader environment by bringing back biodiversity to the city, growing your food next to you as well. And it's quite an amazing process to be part of growing a plant from the beginning, like from a seed, and then at the end being able to harvest it and eat it. I think it helps you to reconnect to nature, but also to where is the food you eat come from. So yeah, there will be the 3 tips.
Yeah, so again, the action kind of then leads to more inquiry. You just start thinking about, well, where does the food that I buy come from, and how is it grown, and what kind of fertilizers or pesticides are used, and what impact does that have on the environment? So it kind of comes back to your path and your from becoming a Responsible Runners volunteer, and then from there being more inquiring and delving deeper and deeper into climate change and what you can do, and educating yourself as you're now a consultant in this area. So that's really exciting. Thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely chatting to you. So inspiring, and I'm sure I could speak to you for hours. So thanks so much. Thank you to our listeners. If you'd like more information about Voices of Wentworth, please go to our website, voicesofwentworth.org. We are a non-partisan community group. We're volunteer run, and we're here to listen, inform, and advocate on behalf of our electorate. So thank you very much. Au revoir to Mylene, and bye now to everyone else. Thank you.